Hello, and welcome to Founder Freedom from Hustler to CEO, the podcast built for e commerce entrepreneurs and small business owners who are ready to work less, earn more, and scale smarter. I'm your host, Stephen Palmer, and we're talking about a company that's reinventing the rustic design industry. If you've ever wrestled with unreliable suppliers, scaled from builder to brand, or wondered how to market without a massive budget, this episode's for you. Let's jump in with Jason Bast, co-founder of Forever Barnwood. Welcome, Jason. How are you today?
Hello, Stephen. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about Forever Barnwood and the value proposition that you offer to the world?
Yeah, so at Forever Barnwood, what we originally started as and what we continue to be is an alternative to the reclaimed wood market. And if you're not familiar with what the reclaimed market is, that would be everybody's familiar with the old barns that are getting torn down, and that hence the name reclaim. They're basically reclaiming that old wood and then repurposing it, putting it into new houses and that kind of thing. So that's basically what we were founded to do, and that's what we continue to do. And we feel like we do it way better than reclaim.
Nice. So what inspired you to create Forever Barnwood as a brand?
Well, there's several issues with reclaimed wood, and as a builder, originally I struggled with reclaimed wood. I always loved it. I still love it. However, it's got issues, and some of those issues are the main one is essentially that you're dealing with wood that's been exposed to not only the weather, which makes it look cool, but also lead-based paint, formaldehyde, um, lead that really doesn't ever leave the wood. Even if you power spray it or take the paint off it, that lead is permanently in the wood. You also have the bugs and the feces and basically whatever you've ever seen in a barn over 100-year period is in that wood. So bringing that into the house is not something that's exceptionally desirable. And then it's almost forbidden now in the commercial industry because of the harmful chemicals and different things that can be in that wood. And the other thing about reclaimed wood is it's not scalable. So there's only so much of it, and there's only so much that looks like one kind, essentially. You only get so much of each look, and then it's gone.
Right.
And then you're on to the next thing. And if you're in the construction business, you understand how hard it is anyway to go through the process of making selections with buyers and clients. Having them pick out reclaimed wood is 10 times harder than that. So we offer an alternative to both of those problems.
Nice. Great answer. Great inspiration. So what was the biggest major challenge that you saw in the market that led you to create Forever Barnwood?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I'll make it quick. I built a model home in 2015 using reclaimed wood, and we built a bar in the basement of that home. And I personally believe that all the business I got off of that model home was because of that bar in the basement. So I got a few new deals off of that house. And the first time I went to replicate that bar, which everybody was in love with, I couldn't do it. And so that really was my first inclination into trying to figure out a way to make this a better option. My partner in this business his background is in the millwork business, and so we happened to be on our way out west hunting, and so we had 16 hours to talk about reclaimed barnwood. And between his expertise and my inspiration, we started working at that point on trying to come up with a product that had all the things that reclaimed wood does not have. In other words, it was free of contaminants, scalable. In other words, we could offer as many boards as you could possibly need. Similar to the way Menards offers 2x4s, we wanted to be the Menards of the rustic marketplace. And that makes it repeatable. So if you finish the upstairs in your house now, and 5 years from now you finish your basement, you can go get that same wood as we were just talking about. You don't have to worry about something being different. We wanted to make it super authentic. We also we kiln dry all of our products in a very special kiln schedule. So we dry that product down to 5 to 8%, which makes it as stable as any millwork that goes into a home.
Right.
Um, and most importantly, we're the only company in the country that does everything from floor to ceiling. So we offer shiplap, a product called Rustic Barnwood plank. We offer cottage wall, which is a 2-inch product that basically simulates the inside of a log cabin. We
Mm.
do rustic doors, which really put us on the map when we first started in this business. They're beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We do doors now in oak and pine. We have a millwork product, so a complete oak and pine millwork product that you can basically trim your entire home in a rustic look. We have beams, solid beams, hollow box beams, which are super popular right now because we can do
Sure.
lengths up to 40 feet. We do countertops, bar tops, flooring. We've got 3 different floorings now: rustic pine, rustic white oak, and rustic red oak. Um, we've got cabinet component materials, so you can build cabinets out of our product, and we also have floating shelves. So there's really nothing we don't do, and that's really what sets us apart from any other company in the country.
Nice. So no gaps left behind.
No, and we'll get to it later in the podcast, but I mean that's our strength.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as a carpenter, you don't want any gaps
No,
left behind. I
no,
know this for a fact too.
yep.
I used to
And once
pound nails.
carpenters work with this product, they never want to see another piece of reclaimed wood.
Oh yeah. It
It's
probably even
totally
smells better when you cut it.
It absolutely does. It's got that new car smell, and I don't know how that happened, but it's there.
That's funny. So kind of this question might have been covered, but like what was the existing way do you think of doing business in the reclaimed wood that you saw as broken and fixed?
Yeah, I think other than the drawbacks, the obvious one for our target audience, which is homeowners and contractors, is just simply the process of finding, sourcing, and reclaiming the wood that you want. It's a process. Imagine really the way it was done is you would go to let's just say, for instance, that your lumber yard, your local lumber yard, instead of it being 2x4s and OSB and
Mm-hmm.
insulation and treated posts, it was all barnwood, and it's laying and on giant pallets all over a big yard. So it was basically the process was you get your clients and you walk through a yard like this, and you essentially handpick your reclaimed product, and it's inefficient. It's the other part that people really hated was if you, let's say you bought a unit, which let's just say a unit is 1,000 square feet of reclaimed wood,
Yeah.
there might only be 60% of that unit that's actually usable. The rest of it, once you cut the bands off it and start picking through it, a lot of it was rotten.
Right.
And so it was an impossible process. It was ripe for improvement, and so that's basically what we capitalized on.
Nice. So it sounds like that's worse than buying a pallet of stone, like the
Yeah,
same
it's
kind of
very similar to
problems.
it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then trying to fit it into the spots that it goes through. It's very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
basically like buying a 1,000 piece puzzle and trying to put it together. It takes
Right.
time. It might be enjoyable in the end, but the process is not enjoyable.
Little bit of waste. A lot of bit
Yep.
of waste.
Yep. And mostly time.
Right. So explain to the audience how how your company solves those problems better than the old way.
Um, well, just a little bit of background. I mean, when it came to inventing this product, we had to find a way to take brand new wood, which is what our product is made from, and it's made from brand new circle sawn white pine, red pine or red oak, and and white pine. And so we had to figure out a way to distress that wood, and there's been a lot of people that distress their own wood using all
Yeah.
kinds of different methods. But we had to find something that was scalable. We couldn't be sitting down here with hammers
Right.
and
Chains.
chains and yeah, and distressing this stuff. We also had to find out we had to find a way to age wood, instantly. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to find a way to make a brand new piece of pine look like 100-year-old board, and it had to happen quick. So we started working on several different solutions. But remember, we had other issues too. It had to be food safe. You had to have no VOCs, no
Mm-hmm.
lead, no formaldehyde, no noxious fumes. So there was some drawbacks. We had to be able to cover it with a water base or an oil based covering protectant. So there was a lot of things that had to come together, and we spent about a year on R&D, and frankly, we didn't get to where we needed to be. And I'm a graduate of University of Wisconsin River Falls, and somebody suggested, well, why don't you go down to the university and talk to the chemistry department?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. And we actually had a couple of chemistry grad students who were just looking for resume builders. And we took our what we had put together at that point, which I'll just call a recipe, and we laid it in front of them. And in a couple weeks, they were able to replace a lot of the harmful chemicals that we were using with product that um, basically took us from 80% to 100%. And all of a sudden, we had a viable mixture, which we now refer to as secret sauce.
Right.
And the cool thing about it is it's not a stain. We call it a living finish because it's got mild acids in it that actually react with the acids that are already in white pine
Mm-hmm.
and oak. And so when we apply this product to a brand new piece of wood right in front of your eyes, it transforms it into the product that you see behind me right here, where
Right.
it literally looks like you tore it off of an old barn.
Yeah.
And it does that with such mild chemical reaction that there's really no smell other than that new car smell I mentioned.
Right.
Um, there's really no smell to it, and you can handle it with your hands and wipe it off, and it turned out to be a a godsend. And we did go through the patent process on that product, and so yeah, that's basically how we ended up doing it better, and that's kind of the story of how the company started. And once we had that done, we put together a very limited product offering. We had 1 inch dimensional boards, and we had some barn doors that we built.
Yeah.
And we did it old school. We originally thought that our way to market was going to be through distribution and dealers, and so we targeted some of the hot markets. We happened to be elk hunters, so we were heading out west anyway. So I spent a little time researching distributors out in the Colorado, in the Denver area.
Yeah.
And so when we went out west elk hunting that fall, we loaded the back of the pickup truck with doors and 1 inch boards,
Mm-hmm.
and we left our area here, and our first stop was in Des Moines, Iowa, at Beiser Lumber. Then we did a product knowledge meeting with them just to get some feedback on what they thought. So they had 20 of their salespeople in a conference room, and
Mm-hmm.
if that was any indication, we knew that we had something. And we continued on, and we spent the next 3 days in appointments in Denver and Grand Junction and Pueblo and Fort Collins.
Oh,
And
you were all
by the
over the
time we were
state.
done, we didn't have any barnwood left. We had left everything out there, and so that's kind of how if you want to call that a bootstrap
Bootstrap.
start
Yeah.
to a company, I guess that's the definition.
That's awesome. You took your precious hunting days and you spent them on marketing.
We added some days. We didn't give up any.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's a great story, Jason. Seriously. Really, really good grassroots there. So, okay, let's say now I'm a new customer. I'm looking at your website today because I'm thinking about building a cottage or whatever. So, what's the biggest misconception that people have about what your company does?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that we are a reclaim company. So we get a lot of calls from people who want us to buy their old barns. And I would say the biggest thing about starting a new business is trying to make people know you exist.
Right.
And so the misconception with our product goes along those same lines. Everybody is used to wall coverings like you see behind me. You know,
Right.
there's 50 companies out there that do wall coverings. And so a lot of times when people contact us, even though they've been to our website, they have no idea that we do everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a young business just starting up, it's product awareness is huge, because if people imagine what that can mean to the bottom line every
Mm-hmm.
year, if everybody that calls is aware of 100% of the products that you offer, it just translates into more sales. So that's one of the things we impress on our inside and outside sales guys here at Forever Barnwood is that we're more than just order takers here. We we want to know about your project, and so we ask the question right away: "What are you doing? Tell me about your
Mm-hmm.
project." Because a lot of times, what we found is people call us for wall coverings. We end up selling them doors and millwork and flooring and the whole thing, and they frankly weren't aware of it when they called.
Yeah.
So I would say that for any business, product awareness and getting your name out there and brand building cannot be underestimated.
Right. Awareness is definitely the hardest thing when you're bringing something new to the market,
Hmm.
for sure. So do you have a success story either in relation to what you just talked about or maybe just on a mission level from the company that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I think our best success story is started in 2018, which was a year after we started the company, and we we got an order from a company up here in the Minneapolis St. Paul area, who basically is a millwork installer. So you can hire them to come and they're on the commercial end. So you
Mm-hmm.
can hire them to come basically trim big projects. They're a big commercial outfit, and they contacted us about doing a hotel that was being built in Stillwater, Minnesota, called the Crosby, and it's it's uh, it's owned by a company called After Midnight Group, and they contact us about basically just doing the baseboard trim and the trim about around the windows in this hotel,
Yeah.
which we were excited about. We weren't doing much in sales at that point, and we saw that as a great opportunity. It was going to be our first commercial job,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went down and met with the owners on site, and the same what we were just talking about. We were down there to do the millwork, and I said, "Well, what about doors? What are you doing for flooring?"
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, what happened was is we the owners, once they found out what we had, it became kind of a joke. That hotel took about a year and 3 months to complete.
Yeah.
And the joke ended up being that whenever they ran into a area that they didn't know what they were going to do, they would just put barnwood on it. And so we ended up doing. I want to say that there was 80 some rooms. We ended up doing all the flooring in those rooms. We did the trim, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
We also built big trestle tables
Mm.
and bedside tables, and we did floating shelves for them, and we did bed frames. And then down in the bar area, we did all the flooring down there. We did all the shelves that they set their whiskeys and their product on
Yeah.
behind the bar. It ended up being a giant project, and to this day, After Midnight Group is our biggest private customer. They continue to do. They own all the Cowboy Jack's restaurants up here in
Mm-hmm.
the Midwest, and they also do a lot of remodeling of homes, and it's all in the same vein uh, that our
The
product
rustic.
presents. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I would say that was a good example of two things. One, that it was a commercial project, so all the product they had to use had to be food safe, commercial safe, to
Mm-hmm.
be in that environment. And also, it's kind of a speakeasy theme.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel is, so it was a perfect way for them to set the tone
Yeah.
for what they were looking for, and it was scalable. There's no way that they could have found a product in a reclaim uh, market that they could have gotten enough material to even come close to doing that project. So
Right.
I would say that that was such a springboard for us at a time when we were a young company. We needed capital to reinvest. It was huge from that standpoint, and it continues to be, like I said, our biggest private account.
Yeah, that's a great story. Great
Yeah,
story. So they found out about your new product offering and they just really just went all in. It lined up perfectly with what they were trying to put out for their customers
correct.
with the
And now they lean
speakeasy,
on us. They lean on us heavily.
which is
They,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
So do you see any trends shaping the future for Forever Barnwood? Any challenges or new things?
Um, really, I guess my advice and kind of what our theme is we're always innovating. So we're always adding new colors. We listen to feedback, and obviously, you can't do everything that people want. But I think every year it's important to not let your product line get stale. So we're always looking to add another profit center. This year, it's for us, it's our white oak millwork
Mm-hmm.
and our white oak door product and our white oak flooring. So
Nice.
I guess basically what I'm saying is we started out as a completely rustic company. One thing that we found out through this process is that unless you're doing a cabin, and even if you're doing a cabin, 100% rustic might not be your taste.
Mm-hmm.
So we've really tried to embrace this, what I call modern rustic or
Yeah.
contemporary rustic, where you mix some rustic with some very clean,
Mm-hmm.
modern looks, and it
Yep.
works fantastically. So, in that vein, we've tried to go from being strictly a rustic barnwood company to more of a full service millwork company. And so, if somebody is going to buy, for instance, an oak door from somebody else, they might as well get a rustic, authentic, handmade oak door,
Yep.
or they might it gives them the ability if they were going to do knotty alder, which is a very popular wood right now. They can do a solid oak door now that for about the same price point, and so
Mm.
it just gives us more options. It gives us more um, customer exposure. There's a lot more chance that a customer is going to say yes to us than no because
Sure.
we've got more options. So
That's smart.
as far as challenges go, our challenges are always the same in this business because we are direct source from mills. We deal with the same issues that they deal with, which are
Mm-hmm.
weather essentially. There's only certain times of the year that you can saw white oak, and so our window is short. Things can happen. Pine obviously is all harvested in the winter. A lot
Mm.
of times, pine, if you get a real rapid spring thaw, a lot of that pine gets left in the woods because they can't get it anymore.
Mm.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know about pine is that if it's on the ground for just a few weeks, it gets two things that make it unusable for Menards, and that is bugs, worms. It doesn't take long for worms to get into pine logs, and
Mm-hmm.
it also starts to blue stain. And so once it's blue stained or it's got bug issues, it's no longer viable. So that's
Right.
where Forever Barnwood steps in because we love wormholes. We don't even
Sure.
charge extra for them, and we also love blue stain because blue stain, when you mix that with our secret sauce, it creates, I would say, an aurora borealis of color in a
Nice.
piece of wood, and it just enhances it. So the more blue stain and water stain and aging that we can get naturally, the better our product is on the back end.
That's cool. So you are making hay with what others might leave behind.
In fact, we mostly use the part of the tree that usually gets left in the woods,
Nice.
which we would call character grade. It's the stuff with the knots that makes it unusable for structural lumber, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes it perfect for what we do.
Right. Perfect.
Well, in that sense, I call us a green company.
Yeah, for sure. If you can get that label on your store, you're talking to more customers that
Yep,
might
correct.
not otherwise connect with you. Eco-friendly all that stuff is popular today.
Yep.
So good stories. So advice. So thinking about other entrepreneurs who are listening, to maybe stay ahead of the curve or start a new business, do you have any advice for them from a
Yes,
today
I do.
perspective?
Yeah, and I was glad most of the podcasts I do are strictly product related. So I was happy to hear that you were a lot interested in the actual business side of starting a business.
Good.
And I can tell you, in 2009, I got my MBA, and y- you know, you really don't know business until you actually try to start a business. And
Mm-hmm.
I had done business plans and different things, and so I guess there's a couple of things that I would say is one is don't be afraid to pivot. And sometimes the original intent of your business or how you think it's going to go and the business plan that you present to the first bank or investor that you talk to
Mm-hmm.
um, is not the way it's going to be. And you have to get out of your own way. You have to have no ego. Your ego will drive you out of business.
Right.
So you basically have to look at the facts. The numbers don't lie. You have to listen. You have to surround yourself with good people, from your attorney to your marketing people to your employees, um, honest people. And so, just a quick story. I mean, the original, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, that originally we thought that our way to market was going to be through distribution and dealers. So that's what
Right.
we did. When I said we went out west, we targeted lumber yards, we targeted millwork shops, the people who we thought were going to be our customers, and they were excited to put our product in stock. So we would get really nice stocking orders. We would send a semi load of barnwood out to Denver, Colorado, and they would
Mm-hmm.
put it on the shelves. But what we quickly realized was distributors don't sell your product and
Mm.
dealers don't sell your product. So Menards is a good example. You go into a or Home Depot, you go into Home
Mm-hmm.
Depot, you ask them for what you're looking for, right? Nobody at Home Depot or Menards is ever going to say, "Hey, Stephen, have you thought about this product? This is a new product we have." It doesn't
Mm.
happen. So
Mm.
they're not salespeople. They don't sell your product. The only one that's going to sell your product is you. So what we quickly found is that even though we had great distribution orders to start with, we didn't have any reorders because
Mm.
they weren't selling our product, and they weren't doing the product knowledge meetings with their dealers. And so their dealers, if they even knew they had the product in stock, they didn't know anything about it. They didn't know pricing. It was impossible. So
Right.
after about a year and a half, we had to pivot. And frankly, we wouldn't be here today if we wouldn't have pivoted at that point. We would be out of business. So what we did is we took we took all the resources that we had focused on dealers and distributors, and we refocused that into uh, a marketing effort that targeted contractors and homeowners. So we basically went right to the source,
Mm-hmm.
pull through demand. If you can get to a homeowner and they decide that they want Forever Barnwood, they go to the contractor and say, "Hey, I want Forever Barnwood. Call these guys." So that was a huge change in our business plan, the
Mm-hmm.
original business plan that I wrote. And I would say that I'd be hard pressed to think that there's a small business that isn't gonna. It might not be that exact decision, but it's going to be something similar where they have to not be afraid to basically uproot everything that they had planned and go in
Right.
a different direction. So you have to be willing to do that. The other thing that I learned too is that these timelines in business are a year goes fast. So if you're looking for um, a new product between R&D and setup and acquiring the resources, you're looking at 6 months to a year. And the same is true when you're hiring somebody, especially with a product line as complicated and as vast as ours is.
Mm-hmm.
If you hire somebody, it's going to take 6 months for them to just to come up to speed. So you have to be thinking 6 months or a year ahead on everything that you do. And you also have to set yourself hard deadlines, because I've also realized that if you just leave open ended goals,
Yeah.
they basically just keep getting delayed and pushed. And so those are the two things. The other thing is, and I hate to say this, but government is not your friend. Um, I would, I've always told people that if I was going to run for office, that one of my things would be that you didn't pay any tax until your fifth year of profitability as a small business.
Yeah.
Right now, they say that 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years. And I know why. Between regulation, insurance requirements, uh, taxes,
Mm-hmm.
just the burden of government. I've realized that I really don't think they want people to succeed. I've
Yeah.
really know that, and so I think to myself, if we could have taken every dollar of profit that we had, and it wasn't much, but if we could have reallocated that money into our infrastructure, into employees, into product innovation, research and development, um, we would have got to where we are today, probably 2 or 3 years ahead of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that instead of having 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years, you'd see that flip to where you had 9 out of 10 businesses succeed in the
Yeah.
first 5 years. So I would say that my advice is that you have to be you have to be willing to listen, you have to be willing to pivot, and you have to fight tooth and nail
Yeah.
against
Through the
not against,
regulation.
yeah, you really have to try and work with it and just do the best you can with it.
Very interesting that you bring that up. I would say I've talked with 4 people in the last 30 days, business owners, who also hang their hats on regulation is bullshit, basically. Like
Hmm.
in trying to launch a new product, if you have some type of regulation in the way, good luck. Good luck getting rid of it
Yeah,
because
true.
it's
And
in the way.
not only do they regulate you directly, but they regulate, for instance, insurance companies to
Mm-hmm.
the point where they don't insurance companies, their hands are tied. Basically, well, the government has turned accountants into IRS agents, and they've turned insurance agents into inspectors,
Yeah.
basically. And so it's not their fault, but they make it hard to get insurance. And when you do get insurance, it's confiscatory
Mm-hmm.
as far as the audits and the cost, just the
Right.
raw cost. Um, and so and the other thing is, I think small businesses also get a bad rap in the press. You hear about how greedy small business owners are, and they don't pay their employees. I completely disagree with that. Even in small town Wisconsin here, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, everybody up down here starts out over $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 401k match. We're small, so we're working on getting medical benefits. But all of that stuff, I mean, you really can't get anybody that's worth having, unless you pay them a living wage. The idea that the minimum wage is even a thing anymore,
Right.
I don't even see it.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Regulation.
It's more
Regulation.
of a no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, your point is very apropos. Like just think about like what everybody could relate to from the recent past is like why did McDonald's have to go to living wage? Because the way they were doing it was broken previously.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was
Right.
totally
There's
broken.
no way we wouldn't be in business if we didn't. We have to attract the right people, and the only way to do that is it's got nothing to do with what the government thinks living wages or what I should pay
Mm-hmm.
somebody. They either say yes or no. We
Right.
advertise at X dollars an hour. If we don't get any applications, then it's got to come up, and then all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden you get applications.
Right.
So that's just the way it goes. The market is so far ahead of government that it's kind of laughable that they even think that they're a factor other than a negative factor in the process.
Right. Good point. So what's up next for Forever Barnwood besides what you mentioned about product development? Anything else specific?
Not really. We set growth goals every year, and of course, that's the other thing is no matter what you do as a small business, even if you do everything right, you're subject to the greater macro economy,
Right.
whether it's interest rates or wars or tariffs or whatever it is. We have to play in that pool. And so we set a growth goal every year. Of course, the first few years we grew it at an unsustainable rate, which is typical
Mm-hmm.
with new products. But now we've leveled out. We set our goal at about a 15 to 20% growth per year, which is still pretty aggressive.
Yep.
Um, but we've also invested a lot of money in the last couple of years in brand building through TV media and some strategic partners we've got around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to grow. We're trying to grow this thing. We're already nationwide, but we're really trying to make Forever Barnwood a household name. And I think the one reason we can do that is what I mentioned earlier in the podcast about the fact that we are the only company in the country that does everything.
Right.
There's lots of wall covering companies out there, and there's flooring companies, but there's not a company out there that combines the innovation and the breadth of product that we do. So I think that in the next 3 or 4 years, our goal is to really cement ourselves as the go-to vendor in this rustic line.
Very nice. Probably the best answer I've heard all year.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Love it.
Well, I think about this stuff a lot. You have
Obviously, it's on your brain.
to. Yeah,
I
it's on
mean,
my
I can tell
brain.
just from the little bit that I have known you for the past 10 or 20 days that you're very goal oriented just in your
Yeah.
conversation.
And yet I don't set goals, Stephen. That's the amazing thing. Seriously. I mean, we set I don't set personal goals. I just
Mhm.
my philosophy has always been I get up every morning and I go to work. And I feel like if you do that, if you have the discipline to do that, good things happen. Um, goals can cause you too much disappointment. And the other thing about goals is sometimes you're not in control of it.
Yeah.
Like I just talked about. I mean, if rates go to 12% and nobody's building houses in this country, it doesn't really matter what I do at Forever Barnwood.
Right.
My goals are not going to be made. So
Right.
as long as I get up and go to work in the morning, that's really all a guy can control,
Yep.
you know. So
Keep your
that's what
hands
we try.
dirty.
Yep, keep your hands dirty. Exactly.
Nice. So great talk, Jason. Thank you so much. So what's the best
But
way for listeners to get involved with Forever Barnwood here?
yeah, we have a fantastic website that we continually upgrade and work on. You can look at all our past projects and pretty much it's an inspiration for whatever project that you've got going on. And we're at foreverbarnwood.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you can reach us. And then if you go to foreverbarnwood.com and you are interested in pricing, we offer dealer pricing for people who are in the business. We also offer trade pricing for designers. And so you can fill out the little information thing there, and one of our inside sales guys will get a hold of you. And our inside salespeople are more than just inside salespeople. They've been doing this long enough now that they're actually very good interior designers, and they've got very good ideas about how to help you walk through the project. We've also got a showroom down here in Plum City, Wisconsin, which is just I would say 40 miles southeast of the Twin Cities, St.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, Minneapolis area. We have a 3,000 square foot showroom down here that you can come down and take a look. But that's really the best way to get involved in what we're doing down here. And like I said, we can take care of any part of your project and all of your project.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Well, thanks for tuning in to Founder Freedom, folks. A big thanks to Jason Bast for walking us through the story behind Forever Barnwood and showing us how you can take market frustration and turn it into a national product line. If you're a designer, builder, or homeowner looking to add character and charm to a space, minus the pests and supply chain drama, visit foreverbarnwood.com to learn more. If this episode sparked any ideas, share it with a fellow founder, leave us a review. More founder stories are on the way. Until next time, build bold, scale smart, and keep it real.